I think AI is a kind of a fad and a distraction. I don't think it has any prospect of addressing whatever it is that's gone wrong. But I think we do need to start being honest that something serious has gone wrong, and it's gone wrong in a bigger way in the United States than in other places around the world. When I used to talk about the benefits of growth, and when I was the most optimistic economist in the profession, I would say, look at history, look at all the growth we've had, and here's this indicator of growth. It's hard to measure GDP in the year 500, but look at what's happened to life expectancy. Well, look at what's happened to life expectancy in the last 20, 30 years in the United States, especially relative to countries around the world. If that was our indicator of things going well, things are going badly in the United States. And we need to grapple with that and think hard about what's caused us to turn from positive to not only falling behind our partners, but negative, and then think about how do we address it. The problem is that technologies create possibilities. Some of those are good, some of them are bad. If you've got a government that can act on our wishes as citizens and say, don't let people do those bad ones, just do the good ones, then new possibilities is going to be good on average. But what's happened, I think, is we've neutered our government, we've incapacitated it, and it's lost the ability to say, even like under the Reagan administration, like chlorofluorocarbons that are gonna destroy the ozone layer? No, we don't wanna do that. That's a great technology for some purposes, but it's gonna destroy the ecosystem, so let's just ban them. And the Reagan administration banned the chlorofluorocarbons. I don't think an administration today could do that. And I think this is you see signs of this around the world, but I'm afraid the United States is out in front. So the bottom line is that you can't have progress unless you've got both technological innovation and a mechanism for expressing the collective desire to do the good parts and not do the bad parts. And it's that ability to express what we want and then carry it out. That's what's at risk right now. Data matters, evidence matters hugely, and our ability to marshal more evidence and look at it in more innovative ways, this is a big step forward. What I think probably both of us would push back against is this idea that machines are gonna just displace the people. You don't need a person in that loop evaluating what the data means. And this is just madness. This is crazy. Nobody knows anything about these models. Ask yourself this question. Would you rather get an answer about an important question? Like go back to the 40s and think about what are the prospects for growing more food? Would you like to hear from a person who spent 5 years deeply immersed in this? Or would you like to hear from 1 million people who've given like half a second to thinking about the prospects for more food? And if you know the history of the Green Revolution, the Rockefeller Foundation fortunately listened to somebody who was working on this problem, didn't look at the analog of Twitter at the time, because that would have picked out somebody like, Paul Ehrlich, who was selling books about the population bomb. So I think we really gotta take seriously this idea that there are people who are thinking carefully and people of integrity who dig deeply in. And there's a lot of other people who are just repeating the conventional wisdom that they heard from somebody else on Twitter. And there's no new information when you get 1 million people who are repeating the conventional wisdom as opposed to 5 people repeating the conventional wisdom. In a market, you offer to sell something to me. I give something of value to you. I look at the thing that I get from you and I decide, was that worth what I gave you? And if it isn't, I don't go back to you, I go to somebody else. If it is, I can keep dealing with you. None of those elements of what makes a model work are present in the current markets for digital services. We don't pay for Google search. Somebody else pays to try and influence what we see on Google search. Third-party payment is not a good way to run a market. We see this in healthcare. It's not the right way to provide digital services. And so the problem we've got now is not just concentrated power using traditional means of extracting monopoly rents. We've got very concentrated, very powerful firms pursuing a toxic business model based on surveillance and targeted advertising and manipulation of what people see and hear and know. And it's I think, a very threatening kind of force. I think you apply this to political advertising, and then you close the possibility of actually some kind of collective response to say, we don't want markets that work this way, that involve this kind of dishonesty, misrepresentation, surveillance, tracking. That, we don't want markets that provide services where the Surgeon General has to say, you better protect your kids from these services because it's going to ruin their lives if they get too hooked on them. So it's not just concentration, it's a business model which is just toxic, and it's unprecedented, and we really need to just say we don't want to live in that kind of a world. I think the way to start on this targeted digital advertising is tax it. We can't ban it outright. I think these firms have way too much political power for that. Even if that's what we want, it won't happen. But we could start to tax it. And we could start to tax it at the local level. States could do this, cities could do this, other countries in the world can do this. And we can then incrementally shift them and tell them they have to shift to a model which is like the model for Netflix or the model for groceries. I mean, you pay a subscription or you pay for the services provided. But this advertising model is second only to the model in pharmaceuticals, which is let's get them addicted to opiates. The paralysis is just we're not making decisions. It's either we're going to tax more or we're going to spend less. And to a certain extent, you can think of yourself as being on the top of a hill. It doesn't really matter which solution you come up with. We should just make a decision. And it's that incapacity to make a decision which leaks into debt. And it should be the thing that should worry us, is we just lost the ability to decide.